Oh, there it is. Camera's on. Anyway, I'm making a video. It's going to be a response video to a video by Matt. You know, there are, thou art that guy. On the subject of science and religion, and which one does the human race more good, kind of thing. You know, it just seems like a silly question. Which one has the potential to do more good? Better question. But yeah, it's you know, I'm going to do a critique of his video. And first, I just want to talk about Olfan. She got this terrible, awful end of year critique of this segment from Tiny Chat as a art. She's in art school, so I just found it kind of funny because hey, you're just kind of saying, what does the philosophy have to do with the art of the sale? And that's really, you can only, I mean, that would be to me the only thing that would matter in an art school is not so much what you're selling but how you're selling. It's like if you're at business school, it doesn't matter what the widget is, it just matters how did you have a good business plan to make and distribute the widget at a profit. And that should have been the limitation of the critique. And frankly, you know, as a walking, talking piece of art, I certainly can't be critiqued as being lacking artistic definition as an individual. So I thought that was kind of funny. So the whole style of Tiny Chat, or the presentation of her connection of the things, or whatever, I mean, I could see them critiquing the you know, maybe you know, it's a little too raw, a little too crude, not sophisticated enough, not you know, professional, not enough professional graphics or some kind of professional technique. You know, I could see those kind of critiques, but the critiquing the philosophy that is part of the message of the presentation of the piece, whether it's part of a bigger piece or just in and of itself, seems really quite useless. But, so anyway, but the only other argument I would make is that I think obviously the bit in that forum was so disciplined by me. I was so unartistic in my presentation, deliberately so, that, you know, I think their problem with it is that it was too good an argument, and they didn't want to hear it. But yeah, it just seems kind of silly for people to lose sight of the fact they're in an art school, not a philosophy school. And it really doesn't make any sense to critique what you're arting. Yeah. It's whether you arted it properly or not. But anyway, that's just a side subject. Of course, Emile Sinclair, the shithead, Tranquil, did his whole analysis, but it is kind of funny because he seems to see the literary side of AN, you know, which is the droning on and on by the Schopenhauer types that say absolutely nothing, and you know, it is kind of funny that it's just all about some sort of you know, say words in a certain way and it's okay kind of crap, and it just seems so silly to take big philosophical ideas and say, oh, gee, because you said something, you know. So it's like mankind ought to end its existence of its own will. Well, if you say what? Mankind should end its own existence of its own will. Or mankind should smell the shit and do appropriate. You know, I mean, you just manipulate those few words a certain way, and all of a sudden he says, no, that's invalid. You can't say it that way. I mean, to me, it's just kind of silly that somehow, you know, I somehow have taken a great step for mankind by saying mankind ought to end rape of its own will. Yeah, wow. Wow, did I save the world by doing that? I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, mankind ought to behave like adults of its own will. Mankind ought to not be lying scum of its own will. Mankind shouldn't hit people over the head with a brick and steal their money of its own will. I mean, pathetic. Pathetic. Yeah, that's really it. Is pathetic. Shit. Anyway. Yeah, really. No, decent humans should take control of the bus that is mankind. That's what decent humans should do. They shouldn't leave the bus to be driven by parasites. they're letting the bus of human destiny be driven over the cliff by silly indulgences of nonsense. And they should be what? Ashamed of themselves for doing that. They know how to drive. They see there's no driver. Yeah. Of their own will, they ought to get off their lazy asses and take responsibility. Fuck. Well, anyway, that's not the subject of this video, so I won't even bother with that. Never mind. Get on to business. So this is part 2 of a video by Matt, where he's just, defending the existence of religion and basically just slandering science. So, in a laughable sense, right? We know that religion has been more divisive and more war-causing than any other thing on earth. Okay, more people have been killed in the name of God than anything, any disease, anything on earth. And clearly, you can see the manipulation. I mean, the Catholic Church is just grotesque manipulation of ignorance. And this guy's going to complain because capitalists have stolen the value of science. So he's going to blame science for what capitalism has done to it. But he won't blame religion for what obviously power-hungry crazy fucks have done to that. I mean, please. Unfairness much? Yeah, just grotesque. So let's play some of this slop. And such. Oh, I gotta get rid of that. Reflection is sort of annoying of the light. Do you see the light? Do you see the light? Do you? I have to reload this apparently. Be good maybe there'd be some comments to laugh at. So, extra bonus footage and such. Today, baby. I have to wait for it. So this is part 2, but it's all the same kind of rag. Science is
story that was
evil.
actually going on. That's the nature of science, right? So I agree, it's self-correcting, it's a beautiful method, and it does produce knowledge, but that's just it, it's a production, right? Facts are made. There are no facts until you look.
Facts are made. No. A production. Yeah, a production of a photograph. A production of an image of reality. Science informs us of how things work and gives us the power to make them work to our own advantage. And yeah, that's a liability. But it's not our fault. It's not science's fault that we can't responsibly use knowledge. Well, let's not pretend it's something other than knowledge, Matt. Science provides knowledge. Knowledge is a good thing.
Through the lens of a theory at experience, right? I mean, experience is...
Yeah, the only theory involved would be the theory that we're all not cardboard contrivances in some sort of fake universe, in some sort of third-dimensional blah-blah, and that this isn't all just some sort of made-up cartoon. So yeah, that's the only theory that is the context of our acquisition of knowledge, that tree bark is rough in texture.
Theory-laden is another way to put it. And I think because of this, because science has two sides, right, the more phenomenological and then the more experimental, I think there's always going to be a place for philosophy, and that ultimately science should recognize its roots in natural philosophy. Science can...
No, it's the other way around, Matt. Philosophy is just an extension of science. And the same methods have to be applied, the same logic methods, the same non-contradiction methods, the same testing methods to philosophical theory regarding the intangible aspects of existence, which are relationships. You can't touch relationship. Okay, and relationship especially to things called value. So obviously those elements are not something, strictly speaking, a guy in a lab coat can put in a petri dish and put under a microscope. So yes, it's a different branch of science to be a philosopher. But if your objective is something other than finding the truth, then you have perverted the purpose just as much as the capitalist who is manipulating science for profit. So, taking advantage of knowledge for profit. It's just as manipulative as somebody learning Freudian methods of psychobabble control and using it to manipulate people to empty their wallets. The knowledge is not impure. The process of acquiring the knowledge was not impure. It's just the motives of the people using it. And if your use of the philosophical method of analysis, testing, and combat, you have to have some willingness to defend what you're saying. If you're unwilling to have your ideas tested, then you're a fraud to the method. You're a fraud to the purpose, which is to find the truth, not something you feel good about, something that is accurate. You can make accurate statements philosophically. It certainly should be your ambition to make accurate statements philosophically.
Not existing independently of philosophical inquiry. So, and then, in terms of being more realistic about how science is in fact embedded in society, and it's a cultural activity that human beings engage in because they value it,
you can't admit, okay, that science has a rigor, a regime, okay, that most scientists understand and most people do not understand, and then say science is all part of common experience, because it's really not. To do science well, you can't do it as an amateur or a slob or the regular average cultural citizen. They're not doing science, okay, because they don't care about being disciplined or careful or meeting the standards of honesty and integrity and not faking evidence and all of that kind of crap. They don't want that scrutiny. So it isn't nearly as embraced. It is religion where you've said it's okay for any old homeless guy to drink a bottle of whatever, sarsaparilla, and tell us what life means.
Acknowledging that science has always been wed to and dependent upon industry and the military in order for it to advance.
Well, let's just laugh our asses off at that one, right? The military to advance. You ever heard of the Crusades, fella? You ever heard of Napoleon? You can go right down the list of the military's complete obsession with religion and holding books, Bibles up to different civilizations that can't even read the book and saying, do you believe this? And if you don't say yes, we're going to kill you. The militarization of the popular religions, it cannot be denied as a reality. They only exist through militarization, oppression, suppression, and outright genocidal murder. That's how they got where they are, Matt. That's why you even know they exist, Matt, is because they killed people and took their land. Under God.
The advance of industrial capitalism and the military-industrial complex and all of that cannot at all be understood apart from science, and nor can science be understood.
Well, it's just silly to say that it can't be understood apart from science. If you ask most people what is scientific, the F-22 or landing on the moon, they'll know the difference, Matt. They'll know that, yeah, this thing of trying to build military hardware or bombs and blow people up, that's not science. Okay, yeah, that has its ambition, but there's nothing in that that has anything to do with understanding or knowledge, and has just everything to do with people exploiting knowledge. And so you can't blame the thing, the weapon, okay, for the person using it. Guns don't kill people, Matt. People kill people. you know, okay?
Understood apart from it, right? So if we take a more holistic look at human history here and include science among all the other activities that human beings engage in, then I think it's clear that science is not incompatible with religion.
Another just a silly thing to say. I mean, if you're going to take science seriously, it certainly is. But you don't take either thing seriously. You have now redefined, when he says religion, he doesn't mean religion, like, oh, you have a book of dogma, your God says so book, a book full of God says so. He's talking about some ambiguous thing where you say, oh, the God wrote some poetry, don't take it seriously, none of that matters, none of that literal truth crap exists. It's just stories God wanted to tell you. And God is really amorphous and loving, and it doesn't have anything to do with hell and all that kind of crap, and he just wants to rub your hiney's and give you candy, and everything's just wonderful, and he's not trying to molest you. It's pathetic. Hello, computer. Just do what I ask you to do, please.
It couldn't possibly be, because they're not even measurable by the same scale, right? You can't even, there's no criterion to judge.
Oh, come on. Look, I think it's quite obvious. I've said it before, but yes, religion was the first science, and it was just bad science. They just made guesses about reality, and they didn't know what thunder was, so they invented Thor. I mean, it's just that obvious that religion is just an invention of ignorance. And that certainly our ignorance does not exist anymore to justify falling for the Henny Penny stories and Goldilocks and all these other metaphors and fables. Religion is a fable. It is not reality. It's not science. It's not compatible with science. It's a theory of truth that has absolute nonsense as its premise. Faith. Oh, belief without reason. Because I want it to be true, it is therefore true. You can't get less logical.
Their compatibility or incompatibility, because they're different modes of existence. Science, we say
again, it's just so obnoxious to say this when these arrogant, obnoxious religious people will tell you if you do not believe in their God, they will hurt you. They will force kids to repeat the mantras and perform the rituals of the sacred bowing to the God, to the sacred sacrifices to the God. I mean, do not tell me this is not a theory of reality they are proposing. They are proposing a theory of reality, Matt. They are not doing some personal, meditative, wanky wank practice. Alright? They're just not jerking off in private. They are molesting civilization with their nonsense.
Yeah, it produces knowledge, right? Religion isn't about knowledge. And I think we get it all.
Oh, great. I'm glad you could admit that. It's not about reality. It's not about the truth. It's just about wanking on civilization, turning civilization into absolute nonsense and shit because you don't want to take responsibility for the dark truth of our nature and the hard work that has to be done to make this thing called human, behave in something other than a bug manner.
Wrong when we try to understand religion as though it were about beliefs, belief systems, and dogmas, and so on. Religion, like science.
So this is the lie, right? We know that 99% of the religious people on earth have every intention to live under dogma, to promote dogma, to force people to accept dogma. They will kill you in some societies if you do not accept the dogma. So this is just a lie to the reality we exist in. It's it's a disgusting inaccuracy, an unjustifiable inaccurate statement.
Is I think best understood as a process. It's something that people do, and it's not about
Another huge lie. They don't do any of it. They don't obey their own commandments. They don't do any of it. They think this fable, this mush, okay, has done them some good, so they wish to force other people to take the pill. Isn't that all it comes down to? These are like one-legged men, and they're feeling insecure, so they want to try to trick other men into cutting their legs off. That's all this religious crap is. They're debilitated by it psychologically. They are restrained by it philosophically and sensibly and socially. And they wish to create the same social liability in everybody else. That's why they're so paranoid about abortion. They don't care about kids. They'll let kids die in the street. But, you know, you can't harm a fetus. And why? Because fetuses have to do with sex, and kids don't have anything to do with sex. It's too far removed from sex, the actual kid. But the fetus, yeah, that's still connected to sex. And they don't want anybody else having fun because they're prohibited from having fun. And it's just a petty resentment that all this is made out of. These religious people are not doing any sacred ritual. They're not doing any enlightening. They're not doing any uplifting or transcending petty human nature. They are fucking wallowing in it.
coming up with, you know, objective knowledge of the way the mind-independent world behaves. That's not what religion is about. Religion is about finding ways to transform one another with our speech, you know, through the power of...
So does that mean something? Transform one another with our speech. You will accept Allah or we will kill you. Oh, I'm transformed. No, I don't think I am. The Pope babbles some whippity-dippity-doo, and that does it for me. I'm transformed because the Pope went gooey, bobby, ooey, dooey.
Of the word, as it's called in the Judeo-Christian traditions, the logos, right? Religion is a matter of the spirit, where the spirit is not the dead letter.
Right. So you just complete contradiction, right? You just stated that the logos, the description of reality written by the authoritarian dogma book, and now you're starting to talk about experience. These two things have nothing to do with each other. Religion has nothing to do with an experience. It has to do with arrogance. Us versus them. It's all over the place in it. It's just about making a distinction between us, cool God people, and you evil, not God people. It's colors all over the place. It's street hoods. Making a distinction because, hey, we're distinctive because we're wearing red hats. It's imbecilic.
The dogma, the theological ideas or metaphysical constructs, the spirit is what lives between people, and this is why
and the spirit is what lives in between people. Says you. Okay, so you have a tiny minority religion, and you're going to presumptively tell me the spirit lives. It lives, the spirit, between me and you. There's spirit. And you're saying that's not a theory of truth. You're saying it just seems like it's supposed to be self-evident. Is that what you're saying? This spirit that lives is supposed to be self-evident? You certainly haven't presented any evidence of it. I personally don't see any evidence of it. I don't feel any evidence of it, so I don't understand what the fuck you're talking about.
The atheists are beginning to recognize the important communal and social role that religion plays and that if we're
Yeah, the weak atheists aren't really atheists. That's right. They still want a God. They still want some kind of bibbly babbly specially boo. But they just don't want that smelly, stinky God of the antiquity. They don't want to have to wear robes and sandals. They want to be more hip than that. They want to wear their Levi's and their halters. They want their boobs to jiggle a little. But yeah, so as long as the religion has jiggling boobs in it, well, yeah, I'll go for it then. That's how deep their philosophical passions are.
going to become secular, and if God is dead and so on, we're going to need to re-ritualize our experience here as organisms in a
Re-ritualize our experience here as organisms. So the ritual is for our experience, or is the ritual for what? We're too stupid to be told to like knock on the door before you walk into somebody's house, so we have to come up with rituals. So we do it like we knock on imaginary doors all day. I'm learning how to knock on the door. Knock on the door before walking into the bedroom. Knock on the door before walking into the bathroom. I mean, really. What are these rituals for? Oh, because we're what? Too stupid to do the right thing? We can't remember to be decent? We have to practice it in rituals? Let's make old lady effigies, and then we can help the old lady effigy across the street, an imaginary street, as a ritual. We'll act it out in pantomime horse gear. Ugh.
a larger Earth ecology, and that unless we can ritualize our experience as Earthlings, as natural beings, then we're gonna destroy.
Well, what he means by ritualize is he means glorify, deny, transcend, without acknowledging real origin. So, I mean, as natural beings, what we are is, walking and talking fish. We have this sack of skin that's just basically holding a bunch of seawater inside, so the fish that we are can swim around inside of us. It's just a fish tank. Okay, your skin is a fish tank, and that's all you really are. You're just a mouth and the anus and the balls and the, you just see it, steal it, see it, eat it, see it, take it, see it, have it. You're just a fish in a fish tank. But yeah, that's not what he wants. He wants to have a ritual where they're all spirits and wonder beings, and if we all hop hard enough, we'll hop into the sky and fly away, starling.
For each other, society will rip apart. We need religion to bind us together.
So can I laugh now, hard, hysterically? Oh yeah, religion has been so binding. It's done such a wonderful job as making us all hold hands and sing together. It's unbelievable how much good religion's done in the world. How it's always helping old ladies across the street. It's never slaughtering heathens. Or what do the Muslims call the non-converted? I mean, come on.
Yeah, religion's not about knowledge, it's not about belief, it's about transformation.
Yeah, okay, so, again, who thinks that's an acceptable way to define what religion is on planet Earth, as practiced by the average religiite? There's just no point in using this word to describe this event on this planet when it is so separate from what you are describing.
It's about salvation, right? All religions are soteriological.
I don't even think that's true. I don't think the Native American religions were soteriological. I don't think they worried about it. They just figured it was all part of the environment. They went back into the environment. They were absorbed. They were re-emerged. They absorb, re-emerge, absorb, re-emerge. Nothing. This is all there is here on Earth. There's no salvation from it. You just you'll be back. You gotta be back. But anyway, just a statement you make. They're all soteriological. No, that's only the ones that have the biggest armies.
Science itself becomes religious when it starts to speak in this soteriological mode, right? When science is wed to the religion of industrial capitalism.
Oh shit! So now it's like scientists went to the capitalists. It's not even just that. It's like somehow science made the capitalists. That's almost what he's implying here. That somehow science is what made capitalism. That science said, oh yeah, capitalism's a good idea. And I think throughout history that would be the opposite argument would be made. That most scientists didn't think it was smart at all. Didn't think this is the way to do things at all. They were generally empathetic with non-exploitation and long-term productivity and doing things carefully and rationally. So, they were obnoxious to words like exploitation and murder and stealing. So this is just a perversion again, another abuse of words. You say these words you're speaking are some sort of sacred communication? It's frickin' propaganda. It's nonsense, veiling an objective. I hit the damn button. I hit it again, just for fun. Laptops are very convenient, but they are also very annoying. These laptops that don't have only have 2 gigabytes of memory. I'm still working on it. Come on, I hit the button. No, I don't want you to pause. I want you to play. Play, please. Play video now. Play. Anyway, I guess I should say more on this subject. This whole beautification of what religion is. So this is just such an obvious effort. He's just throwing all kinds of mud on the back of science and forcing it to account for, and it's not forcing religion to account for anything, or diversity to account for anything, and how corrosive these everybody make up your own truth crap, just how corrosive that is to civilization and survival in any kind of dignified manner.
It becomes soteriological when you get the transhumanist movement and the idea that through modern or some future medicine and with the genetic engineering and so on that we'll be able to and computer technology will just live forever, we'll become immortal. So that sort of scientific utopian.
Well, again, it's not scientific. It's not scientists saying that forever is even a possibility. I don't think theoretically scientists would tell you that theoretically forever is practical as a theory, that you're going to be able to do any kind of forevering in this universe, that this universe is not going to provide the option of forever. So that's kind of a nothing word. And the whole idea of transhumanism is that's not strictly speaking a scientific conclusion, in the sense that what does science have to say about the ethics or purpose or mission of such a thing? Would science tell you, yes, you can do that? You can turn human beings into cupcakes, or you could turn them into machines, or you can put consciousness in maybe a different vessel that you could keep. Theoretically, science will tell you that theoretically, yes, we could reduce the physical structure to just a brain in a beaker. That theoretically, that's a doable thing. Whether we do it or not has nothing to do with science. Science doesn't say so. Science isn't suggesting that's what we should do. Science is merely telling you these are the possibilities. The possibility, also within the realm of possibility, is just to accept your friggin' bugs, and you've been scratching the same scab for 2 billion years, and maybe you ought to just let it go. Well, 500 million years.
Is what you get when you turn science into religion. But I don't think we should turn science into religion, and I don't think we should turn religion into science, as so many, intelligent design and creationist folks like to do. We shouldn't look to the Bible for our understanding of the evolution of the Earth. And
well, I don't think they're looking for it as a scientific dogma. Yeah, that's right. They're just looking at it as a dogma. But let's not deny the truth that they're attempting to say that this source, this dogma, this mush, this fairy tale written thousands of years ago, somehow has credibility as a source of understanding commensurate with science or superior to science. And that's the nonsense here.
And the wider universe. But we should look to sacred scriptures, especially those of the...
Sacred scriptures. We should look to sacred scriptures. What the hell is one of those? You mean religious dogma. Okay, well, we should look to religious dogma for... Here we go.
World religions, which have transcended, just like Peter Atkins was arguing science has transcended any particular culture or society, right? Buddhism, Islam...
Transcended it how? Yeah, they transcended the North American Indians by massacring them. So they sure as fuck transcended them into the fucking history book. The ash heap of history.
Christianity, religions like these, or world religions, as religious scholars call them, because they didn't remain local. They were exported around the world, and
yeah, they were exported like tea and chocolate and cupcakes. Yeah, they were exported like cupcakes. Yeah, that's how Christianity took over the world. It was just such a yummy cupcake. Yeah, pathetic.
Thrived across continents. So
they killed every Egyptian. So thoroughly did they kill the Egyptian culture that nobody could read the language. I mean, it's kind of startling when you think about it. One of the greatest civilizations of mankind, and they so annihilated anything associated with it that no one could read hieroglyphics.
I think we need to look to religious scriptures as at least the beginnings of a planetary ethic, or a way of ritualizing and...
Oh, man. A planetary ethic. Planetary. So, I mean, our planetary ethic should be some human aggrandizing bibble-babble about how God made man and gave him dominion over the animals. yeah, that should be our planetary ethic. Is that, they're born to be slaves. God says so. Rah. Yeah, I'm just sure if well, whatever. I mean, the animals will probably, that's another thing science says we can do. That it might be quite possible to give animals language someday. But do we really want them to start telling us what they think?
Commonly valuing our experience as Earthlings on a living planet.
On a living planet, which means what? Okay, most of the history of Earth, the living planet was covered with robots that had no sentient capacity, no sensate feelings. For 500 million years, evolved the fish bugs, have been prancing around in their fish tanks on the surface of the Earth, mishmushing about, playing silly wanky wank games. And you want to say this story is somehow, you just did it, right? You just basically aggrandized it as if it's life on planet Earth. And that's all you need to do. And that's an argument.
And we're going to need a lot of good science to get through the ecological crisis, but we're also going to need a new religion, or a diversity of new religions that help to situate.
Yeah, we didn't think about that for 10 seconds, did you? You didn't really think about it. You just said it. A diversity of new religions are going to help us in the atomic future. We're all going to have, whatever, hydrogen power plants on the outside of our houses or in our cars. And yeah, we'll all be so much better off if we all have a bunch of diverse theories of reality. Because then we'll really be sure to get along really well. I don't think so.
Us here in our
get that or not.
planetary society on this.
Let's see. Do I want to tie these two videos together? Oh, I can probably do that. I do want to. I might as well just finish this video, so I'll be back. Alright, we'll be back. Let's get this did and such finished up already.
Planet of other non-human societies of organisms. So, rather than Peter Atkins or any scientific materialist, I would advocate that, we start reading, that the skeptic, rationalist, atheist crowd start reading thinkers like Alfred North Whitehead.
Yeah, they start. Yeah, he would suggest because he's making a living in the field of religious bibble babble, that atheists start reading religious bibble babble. Why? Oh, that's right. No good reason whatsoever. Cat is whining about.
Who articulated an alternative to scientific materialism as a result of that particular metaphysic having been totally undermined by 20th century physics and by
okay, so he's going to make the argument that quantum mechanics basically says the universe is godlike, and therefore this mumbo jumbo makes sense, which is nonsense. So he's saying that all the work of Newton and you can't undo Darwin. I'm sorry, you really can't with quantum mechanics. Yeah, no, it hasn't all been rewritten or unwritten. It wasn't all a lie. It's just a little more complicated than first thought.
Darwin's evolutionary theory in the 19th century. So Whitehead tried to rethink the ontology of science after the Newtonian mechanistic universe was destroyed.
See, I mean that kind of claim. You just think you can make that kind of claim. You think Newtonian mechanics has been destroyed. It hasn't been destroyed. It's simply been reduced to a smaller bit. It's been realized that there's something a little smaller in the universe.
In the early 20th century by quantum and relativity theory. He called his a philosophy of organism.
Relativity theory has destroyed something. So again, that's even a little bit dicey. Relativity is an explanation of phenomenon that may or may not be the story. It's an open door yet as to exactly what's causing the changes that take place in the mechanical dynamics of matter in special circumstances.
Substituting the mechanistic for the organic metaphor. So, as an introduction to him, I'll post a link to a long essay that I've written on Whitehead.
Okay, mechanistic for organic. Right there. Is this an abuse of language or a corruption of language? All of a sudden we're supposed to believe that organic is not mechanistic. That somehow organisms aren't completely programmed, that birds are birds, that they behave in niches, that they have particular abilities and inabilities, that everything is quite mechanically constructed, quite mechanical in its and deliberate in its function in the environment, that none of these things do any shape-shifting or spirit flying or any of that stuff. They're in a physical, mechanical world their psychologies and everything seem quite narrowly confined into a small package of possibility, and that's all that is going on here. It's very mechanistic. So why are you saying organic or holistic or any of these other words have anything to do with somehow breaking the idea that it's mechanical? Oh, that's right, you haven't. You just make it up.
Its relevance, as I understand it, to contemporary scientific cosmology. Because I agree, actually, with Atkins that in cosmology we have the sort of growing intuition of a systematic understanding of the way the whole universe works, from its smallest to its largest, and from the micro to the macrocosm. But the thing about most physical science nowadays is that it leaves out the middle, the mesocosm.
So that's another
Story that was
accusation.
going on.
It seems that we've been quite obsessively devoted to the middle cosm, and that we've lost all perspective of how insignificant this fungus growing on Earth is in the cosmos, and based on the atomic function, how what the matter is actually doing is incomprehensible volumes of substance interacting in very crude ways, not complex ways. So you go smaller, you find a checkerboard. You go bigger, you find a checkerboard. In the middle is where complexity can take place, but the end product, the start product, and the end product seems quite crude and limited in its function. That's the truth. So anyway, yeah, enough said. Science be good, religion be bad. Okay? Sheesh.